going on, everybody? Just got back from vacation, got a couple parts in the mail, so getting ready to throw this timing together because I was waiting on a water pump and that just came in now. I got RTV, a little thin layer all on the outside. You don't want any to get on the inside of it, but just enough so if that little rubber gasket doesn't seal all of it, that little bit of that RTV on the outside will. So, gonna be getting this thrown on right now. I just got both the mating surfaces cleaned up with some acetone and then got the RTV on there, so getting ready to throw this thing together. I'm also going to be showing you guys how to put the timing belt onto this guy and just show you the steps to do that, because I had to do this like last year on my car and I could not figure out how to do it. It literally took me like a month to get it all right, so hopefully I can make a video and give somebody some tips on how to do it and just make it a little bit easier for you guys, so stay watching.
Yeah, this universe will eat itself and then our planet becomes nothing on the scale of all the things that seem to matter. Dwelling deep inside the dark of every human crawls a beast, so be the go.
Just got the water pump installed. It's just 5 bolts and then there's a couple others that go into it from the tensioner. It sits on there. But I put a little bit of RTV on there, so I've just tightened them down just a little bit snug, just so that it makes contact, and it's going to harden up overnight. That's what the package says. It's got to wait 24 hours, and then I'll be able to torque them down. But I just use some gray waterproof RTV. And for those of you that don't know this trick, if you always have a trouble with the cap on these going bad and bugging up all your RTV, I put a little 10mm on the top of that. So I just unscrew it, and it pushes it down in there enough so that it doesn't get all clogged up and harden up. But I'm going to throw these tensioners on there real quick and then be back with you shortly. So this is the tensioner that came off of the engine right here. This is the one that I'm going to be putting on it. As you can see, this one's got this little lip right there. This one doesn't. So at high RPMs, the H series sometimes have a problem with belt walk, and that's when the belt that's riding on here actually wants to move the opposite way. It wants to walk off of this pulley right here. So KS Tuned, they improvised and they created the walk blocker. Just put that on there. It's got an adhesive in here to keep it in, but you just press it into the pulley and it's good to go. So this is really a simple design for the tensioner. It's got this little collet, goes into the back of it, and then it's got this bolt with a washer on it, and that sits in there. So pretty simple setup. And then got the balance shaft tensioner. This one you only do by hand, and it's also a simple setup. So you got your nut, you got your washer, you've got your screw, it sits in there, that's its pivot point, and then this guy comes off of there, just like that. And I'm not even going to be running the balance shafts, but I'm just going to put it on here, just because it tightens everything down. This actually sits on top of there like that. So I'll be putting this all together and show you guys how I do it. So installing this tensioner is fairly easy. All you just need to remember to keep this collet in there. So the collet's in there, and then this little hole right here at the top is going to go through there, and this guy right here is going to go through that big hole right there. So we're going to slip it on with the collet on it, and we can even rest it right there because of that little dimple in the center. It's sitting right on that. Then we're going to take our 14mm with that tapered edge. We're going to pop it in there, we're going to thread it down. So as we're threading it down, you can see that it's going to get straightened out because of that collet going in there. And that's what keeps everything in line. Just hand tight for now. So now it's starting to look a little bit more like the timing components of everything. So this belt, it's going to go around the bottom of the crank pulley. Then it's going to go up here, through there, up around the water pump, and then up to our cam gear. Just like a B series, but just a little bit different. So pretty much everything's together right now. I just got to put that balance shaft belt on there. I'll show you guys how to do that next. I said the balance shaft belt, but this is just the balance shaft tensioner. I'm not putting the belt on. But this guy right here, it's a really simple design. You just got your pulley. You got this little actuator arm, just like that. Washer that sits on top of that, nut. And then we got our 10mm screw with a little bit of a spacer in there. So take that over. And this is really easy to put on. Got everything set up. We'll take all of our hardware off of it and we'll slip it right on, just like that. Take our 10 mil, slide that up in there like that. A couple turns just to keep it tight. Then we're gonna put our washer on, and then we'll put our nut on. So we're ready to put the timing belt on. Got all the components put on there, and this is our manual tensioner. I just bought it online. It's basically the factory tensioners from here are an automatic tensioner, and it's filled with hydraulic fluid, and they're known to fail after a while. So these manual tensioners are a little bit of an upgrade from that. But to get this all into timing, it's really not that complicated. But if you don't know what you're doing, it does take a lot of time, and that was me a little while ago. So we've got a couple of points that we need to line up. So we've got this dot right here on the crankshaft pulley. And we've got this little triangle on the oil pump itself. So what we got to do, we're going to take our 19 millimeter wrench. We're going to turn it over to there. So this is top dead center for our pistons. Want to get it lined up just like that. Well, top dead center for the number 1 piston. And then we're going to come up to our cam gears right here. So these are aftermarket cam gears, but the stock ones do have the same marks on them. So we've got our dot right here. We've got our dot right here. We've got another dot at the top. So that's exactly where they need to be. Sometimes when I'm a little bit stuck, I'll get a straight edge right here. I literally just have a feeler gauge, and I'll put that right on the edge. So if you see, the edge of that feeler gauge is exactly where the cam needs to be, or the cam gear needs to be. So it's a little tip for anybody that needs it. And then also with this one, do the same thing. See how far the dot off is. We're about a 1.5 off. So we're going to be using a 14 millimeter wrench to adjust the cam gears accordingly. And we're going to wrap our belt around the crank gear. We're going to go from the crank gear up to here first, get that all into time with enough slack on it. And then what we're going to do, we're going to go around the water pump, and we're going to move this cam gear to where it needs to be, and we're going to try and slip this belt right over it. So we'll get this going here. All right, so we got our crank lined up to top dead center. We got our exhaust cam gear lined up to top dead center, and our intake gear is a little bit off. So these are 14 millimeters. I got a 14 millimeter wrench here. I've got it wrapped around the bottom of the crank pulley. Got it going up to the tensioner around the water pump like that, and it's just sitting like that now. So first thing I'm going to do is with this tensioner, I'm just going to thread it up right until it touches, because this is all the way down right now. I'm going to keep it all the way down just until it touches right there. Just so, actually I'm going to put it up a half, or nah, I'm going to just leave it just so it touches, so we have the full extent of give that our belt will give us, but we've got enough so that it won't come back down when we get this belt on there. So here we go. So we've got our exhaust cam right here, crank pulley right down there. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna back this gear up a little bit, just enough so that when I get that cog on there, it pulls that crank pulley tight down there. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go down and look at the crank pulley, and it's about a 1/2 tooth off right now. So we're going to back it up a little bit, just like that, to get all of the slack onto this side of the belt. So if you look up here, this side is pretty tight now, and this side has all of the slack. So from there, we're going to look at this, and I'm going to back this off of the cam gear a little bit, just to give us enough play over here so that we can slip this one on. So I'm gonna hold this. You gotta make sure you hold this. Some people can zip tie these through here. I'm not gonna do that. I'm just gonna try and slip it on myself. So we're gonna come over here. We're gonna try and get all of the slack over to here. And if we wanna take our little straight edge, we can see just about how much we need to move it. So coming over to here, we see that we need to go down about 1.5 teeth So we're gonna get our wrench right here. And move it about 1.5 teeth over. So that's even with the side. And we're going to slip that on right there. Now what we're going to do, we're going to come down to here. We're going to tension this up a little bit. So we're tightening this up right here, just a 1/2 millimeter wrench. And what we're basically doing right now is, see how there's a little bit of slack right here? What we're going to do, we got our 19 mil. We're going to try and get that slack off. So if you come up here, I just turned it a little bit. It's a lot tighter now. And if you look, all the slack went to this side of the belt. So what I'm going to do is keep tightening it a little bit more. And that should be good right there. So we want a little bit of play. We want to be able to turn it. We don't want it too loose so that we can't move it or anything. So if you feel you can get this side of the belt tight, where that's the tightest and all the slack is taken out of there and all of it's right here, you can feel the tension of that, and that'll pretty much give you an idea of how tight you want it. You want it to be just a tad loose on this side, not as, well, yeah, you want it as tight as this side. So we're just about good right there. I might add one more 1/4 of a turn, and then we'll lock it down. I add some thread locker to the bottom of this before I actually do lock it down, just to make sure. But that's the gist of it. So we got it tight enough now that we can give it a couple rotations. What we're going to be looking for is to make sure that this belt is not walking right here. And what I mean by walking is trying to come off the front of it or off the rear of it. Now, these H series, they do like to sit right at the rear of the cam gear itself. You just do not want it to come off of the rear. And this, it's actually not coming off the rear at all. It's sitting right on the side of the rear, or right inside the rear. So we're good with that. We're gonna give it a couple rotations and make sure that our cams are still in sync with our crankshaft. And what we're also doing right now is we're trying to feel for any tough spots in the rotation of the crankshaft. Don't want to feel any tight things. Now you are going to feel each of the springs, but just don't want it to be too tight where you feel it binding up or anything. And you probably hear something too if you're doing that. We're going to go a couple of rotations here. The cam gears, we're going to go one more. We're going to make sure everything's in sync here. So we're going to want these 2 dots to line up here, coming up. Trying to get the focus for you guys. Oh, there's our line up right there. And pump on our pulley are lined up. So that's pretty much the gist of doing your timing belt on an H series. And of course, if you're going stock, you got to put all your covers and stuff back on, but I'm not running any of them except the bottom cover. But yeah, if you're having some trouble with it, just shoot me a comment or something. I've marked all of these where the cam gears go. So if you subscribe to me, I'll tell you how many teeth are in between each of them, and I'll send you pictures. So thanks for watching. Like and